Out of all the Primarch theories, for me, this makes the most sense. It seems like the information all connects. It looks like it could happen. But of course, we do live in this fantasy land of wanting things to come back, when obviously things won't always come back. But I am going to talk to you today about Vulkan. Vulkan, Primarch of these salamanders. Could this be one of the first returning Primarchs in 40k to actually side with Guilliman? Not to actually face him, side with him, and actually help him rid the galaxy of the Chaos Taint. As always, this is a rumour. Rumours are not facts. Don't go around saying it's happening, Vulkan is returning. Please, it's just a rumour. I'm just making this video to explain why I think the rumour potentially could be true. So through the whispers of the warp, it's coming in quite hard that a Loyalist Primarch could be returning in 10th edition. I've heard two Primarchs which are kind of always bouncing around in these whispers. One is of course Vulkan, which we'll get onto in a second, and the other is Lionel Johnson. Now we've kind of talked about Lionel Johnson before and why it makes sense for him to come back and what could possibly happen if he was to come back, because it could have massive repercussions for the story, not only for the traitors but for the loyalist side as well. But I actually think that bringing Vulkan back would be a easier storyline for the writers to do, and also actually aid Guilliman more in his fight against Chaos than the Lion could do. So let's start why I think these rumours potentially could be true. Number one is that Vulkan is Vulkan. He's one of the most loved Primarchs out of all the Primarchs. I think even traitor players can admit that Vulkan is an absolute badass. The things that he did during the Horus Heresy, the things that he did during the Great Crusade, during the Siege of Terror as well, all remarkable, all outstanding things. He's a Primarch that actually cares, which is kind of strange when we look at the Primarchs, when most of them are sick, sadistic killers. So on the popularity terms, I think he would sell well because people like him, and also on the emotional level, he could actually connect with the Imperium and what it's going through, all the disasters, and actually try and help the people of the Imperium. I know we're in this grim, dark world where everyone dies and it's violence, it's death, it's destruction, it's plague, there's war, but having Vulkan there, just giving you a little nudge saying, it's all right, mate, you can do it, we'll bring a smile to your face and, you know, just give you a little bit of confidence while you purge the enemy and charge them with your bayonet. Secondly, Vulkan is a perpetual. Vulkan cannot die. Well, technically he did die during the Horus Heresy. One of his boys slung him into a volcano, and now he's back, and I think he's got his perpetual powers back again. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. He's made his way to the Siege of Terror, and he's just helping the Emperor there and stuff, and we don't really know what happens after that. We know to some point what happens, which we'll get into in a second, because, you know, he does return in the 31st millennium, or is it the 32nd millennium, during the Beast Arises series, which again, we'll get into in a second, but we know that Vulkan cannot die at this point, so it makes complete sense for him to be around, doing something in Warhammer 40,000, being somewhere, waiting for his time to step out of the shadows and help the Imperium once again. Now, this is where things start to get a bit spicier around this rumour about this whole theory of Vulkan potentially returning, is that Vulkan is connected to Armageddon. And there's someone else who's connected to Armageddon, in my opinion, as well, and that is Primarch Angron. For those of you who do not know, Angron was banished during the first War of Armageddon. The Grey Knights turned up. Of course, this was all retconned. I say retcon not in the terms that Games Workshop retconned it. The Inquisition retconned it. There was no demons. They killed everyone. The Space Wolves had a massive war with the Grey Knights. There's a lot of fallout from this. But basically, to sum it up, Angron was on Armageddon. Angron was banished by the Grey Knights. And I personally think that Angron can only be resummoned into this galaxy on the planet that he was banished on. And I think we have a little theory that this, well, it's not a theory, a little hinker at a story which kind of proves this to be true. So back in 8th edition, I know we're going back an edition here, there was a story of some salamanders who stopped a ritual of Angron being resummoned on the planet of Armageddon. Now, we know for a fact that the storyline has kind of retconned the 8th edition storyline in a way, because what happened in 8th edition is that it was at the end of the Indomitus Crusade, and they basically did all this crusade and they wasted all this story potential. And now in 9th edition, it's more or less like, hey, we've gone back to the start of the Indomitus Crusade. Things are changing. The Plague War is now during the Indomitus Crusade. It's not at the end of the Indomitus Crusade anymore. There's a lot of things that have changed. And I personally think that the summoning ritual is still going to happen on Armageddon, and this is the way that Angron is going to return. I think the salamanders may fail, may be put to the blade, but maybe someone jumps up and saves them. But again, we'll get onto that in a second, because we know that World Eaters are coming, and it makes sense for the World Eaters to get their demonic Primarch back, Angron, actually on the world of Armageddon. That could be weaving into their release and their storyline when they eventually get their codex, hopefully this year. Now back to Vulkan. What has he got to do with Armageddon? What, is he going to just show up on Armageddon because the salamanders are there trying to stop Angron? Possibly that could be the case, but a lot of people don't know this, is Armageddon was the planet that Vulkan vanished on. Like, this is where he supposedly died again, and we never saw him after this. This is in the story The Beast Arises. This is a 12-part book series about how the Orcs nearly conquered the galaxy after the Horus Heresy, when the Imperium was like so naive about the Orcs and chaos and everything like that. It's a great book series. I know some people disagree, but it mainly focuses on the Imperial Fists, the Black Templars. It's basically the Last War Protocol. Absolutely beautiful. Vulkan was actually found. He was the last Primarch, and he actually came and helped the Imperial Fists, and he actually fought the Beast on Armageddon. Why are they fighting on Armageddon? Well, spoiler alert. Well, it's not really a spoiler. Everyone knows this now. Armageddon is not actually Armageddon. Armageddon is Ullanor. It is the homeworld of the Orc Empire. This is why the Orcs are so drawn back to this planet. This is why Gazskul wants to go there and conquer it, because it is their homeworld. It is their world. I'm sure they have some great technology hidden under the deserts and stuff, all the Orc stuff. So Vulkan vanished on that planet. So can you see the connection? You've got Vulkan who vanished on that planet. You've got Angron who was banished on that planet. You've got salamanders on that planet right now trying to stop the Angron ritual. Maybe the Angron ritual happens, the salamanders about to be slaughtered. Vulkan seeing this, seeing that his brother Primarch has been resummoned on this planet, actually steps out to help the citizens of the planet. Because we know if Angron goes on that planet and he's allowed to do his rampage, then things are going to go bad. The only way to stop him is, of course, with Vulkan. Maybe he didn't show up during the first war of Armageddon because the Grey Knights were there, and he knew that the Grey Knights would be able to handle Angron and his demonic legions. That's why he kept out of it and kept himself in the shadow. Now, there's just one more thing before we end the video. If Vulkan was to return, this is the only well, it's probably him, Korax, or Jagatai that fits into this role. These Primarchs are the Primarchs that would basically wouldn't care about running the Imperium. Like, if the Lion was to return, he'd be looking at Guilliman thinking, hang on, I should have that sword. Even Dawn maybe would have different plans on how to run the Imperium, butt heads with Guilliman. I don't see that with Vulkan. I don't see that with Korax or Jagatai Khan. They would probably just want to be let loose to try and help the Imperium, to slaughter the Imperium, to chase down the traitors and do as much damage as possible. So again, from a story point, this is why I see Vulkan fitting into it easily and not causing that much of a ruckus, and they can just basically release a model and say, hey, Vulkan's returned, he's now sided with Guilliman, and they're doing things together. But of course, we've reached the end of the video, and as I always say, this is all rumour. As I said at the start of the video, it's mostly theory with me connecting the dots on the storylines and potentially how he could return and why it would make sense for him to return. But I have to say that we're getting to a point now where Guilliman is kind of getting a little bit, maybe just a tiny little bit, one-sided on with Chaos. If Angron does return, and I'm convinced that Angron is returning with the World Eaters, I am 110% convinced, then Guilliman is going to be at 3-1. 3-1 against Magnus, Mortarion, and Angron. All they need now is Fulgrim, and they're basically just dunking on Gilliman. So Gilliman needs some help. He needs someone there to help him out. He needs one of his brothers back. It's lonely for Gilliman. I feel sorry for him. And I'm sure if they do bring a Loyalist Primarch back, it will make them a lot of money. And we know at the end of the day, this is a business. Games Workshop is a business. As much as they do these stories, they make these models, it's all about the dinero at the end of the day. It's about making that green. And when you bring Primarchs back, it makes money. It really, really does make money. So this is why I always go on about Primarchs. I talk about Primarchs constantly because I think they will bring as many Primarchs back into 40k. I know a lot of people will say, well, that stops being 40k from being 40k. They deserve to be in the Horus Heritage. That's where the Primarchs are. But a lot of people just love 40k. I think 40k is always going to be more popular than 30k. It's probably going to be popular than any other game that they make. Like no matter what, even the old world and stuff like that. 40k is always going to be king. So introducing Primarchs and potential more profit into that setting is something I see them doing. Anyway, enough waffling. I said I was going to stop the video a minute ago. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. If you've got any thoughts, feedback, anything like that, post it down below and we can have a nice little talk as we always do. See you now. Have a great day. Enjoy yourselves and bye-bye.